one and all, to the greatest day of your life. I am outside under trees with nature, birds, mulch. It is a glorious day. It's warm. It's sunny here in Austin, Texas, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Patrick Pacman Perez. We are joined today by a phenomenal guru. I'm going to call you my guru just because you're so awesome. But if you're joining us for the first time, this is Life and In Between, the podcast where we explore those in between moments, those moments between where you are, where you want to be, who you are, and who you want to be. I am joined by the wonderful Diana Gonzalez. Hello, Diana. Or if you're up north, Diana. And I'm going to actually intro our guest speaker. Her name is Jes Mendoza. I see Parker, but I'm lost here. I haven't had my coffee. So I'm going to play a little segment from her podcast. Little background. She has such a wealth of emotional bandwidth and in being in tuned. She's like a tree. She's like Mother Earth as a tree that we can all just like look to and get some guidance. So this little segment from her podcast is about rage. And I'll touch more on that in a minute, but let me just play this small little segment here because it was so powerful, so good. I'm going to play about 30 seconds to a minute. Jes on the podcast, take it away.
And the body is honest in ways the brain is not. The brain will rationalize, minimize, explain things away, but the body keeps score. The body doesn't forget the no you couldn't say, or the fight you had to swallow, or the silence you forced yourself into just to keep the peace. That's why sometimes the smallest things set us off, because they hit a bruise we've been carrying for years. Rage isn't just about this moment. It's about every moment the body had to hold what the mouth couldn't speak. So let me turn this back to you, sweet friends. What has your body been trying to tell you that your brain keeps hushing? Can you notice the places that tighten, the places that ache, the places that spark with heat? And here's a firm truth. Your body is not betraying you. It's protecting you. It's carrying the signals of what matters most. The invitation is to listen, not to shame it for speaking up.
So what we'll do, I guess we could just put this in the link in the description and I'll put it there. But she's talking about rage and how the body holds on to moments in life that you decided to just excuse away, hide, brush over, when instead you should have dug in, expressed it. And for those of us that are very passive aggressive and we hold it in and we just put on the happy little face, it was liberating. So with that, I introduce Jes. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you both so much for having me. This is seriously such a great honor. Like Patrick said, I'm Jes. Jessica, Jesse, whichever. I tell people whichever they feel most comfortable with. I host a podcast. It's called The Art of Showing Up. And it's funny because it started as just, really encouraging conversations between me and my friend Rachel and our other friend Gabby. And I don't know, they would consistently just encourage me, like, you need to tell more people this. And this was just stuff that I would write in my journals or just scribble down or just randomly text them in the middle of the night. And it's slowly started. And one day I just, decided, stop dipping your toes in and just take the leap. And I did. And I started uploading episodes, and I do just like 15-minute, I like to call them conversations. I want the listeners to feel like that's what it is. Let's just talk. Let's just, go over showing up and how we don't need to be these perfect, cleaned up, like sparkly people and have it all together to show up. Well, let's show up in the messy middle. Let's show up when we're breaking down. Let's show up in the grief and just, sit in it with each other. And slowly we're growing. I've got a really great foundation. I've got really great friends who help and encourage me, and the listeners, of course, always. I call them my sweet friends. So, the most recent episode about rage was definitely something that I went back and forth on. I had it recorded and I listened through it, and I would stop and say, I can't do this. This is really, because this was actually pulled from a conversation I had with my therapist. And but yeah, I just finally just closed my eyes and I submitted it, I uploaded it, and the rest is history.
Wow. First of all, Jess, I want to thank you for coming on Life and in Between. It is truly an honor to have you here with us. I when I actually listened to that episode that you had, it was forwarded. Patrick forwarded it to me and said, "You have to listen to this. This is great." And so I was like, "Okay, let me listen to this." And at that moment, when as I was listening to you talk, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're in my head." Like, and it's what you were expressing. I think it's a common feeling that we are currently now. A lot of us are feeling that
Yeah.
rage, and I think that also, but it's the thing that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's that thing that so I commend you for being courageous in uploading that and sharing that with your audience. So thank you so much for that. And so what I wanted to say, and you tapped into that this was a conversation that you had with your therapist.
Mhm.
What was that moment like? I know that you said that you recorded, you uploaded, but what made that decision like in your head? What was it that clicked in your head, if you can recall? Um, I think people need to hear this. And why?
There was, and I did make sure and mention it in the podcast episode. There was a moment in my conversation with my therapist where we've been going back and forth about just feelings in general. And one that pops up a lot in my life, once you get to know my story, which always happy to share. And there are places where I have shared it, like the first episode of the podcast, but anger happened to be a common denominator in my life growing up. And we talked about that, and I kind of led on to tell her that the anger that I feel, at least in the last few years, was a lot deeper than just like being angry, right? A lot deeper than feeling like I'd been ripped off or something. It was, and I told her, I said, it's something that I feel it rattle my bones. And, and I said, I want to say that it's like rage or something more than that. And at one point she'd said, maybe you're feeling it now because you're in a place in your life where it's safe to actually feel it. And I just kind of sat back in the chair in her office and I started kind of reflecting on everything, like the people I have in my life and where I'm at in this life that I've built, just like blood, sweat, and tears, quite literally. And it was like a wave of relief and acceptance that it was safe. It is safe for me to feel these things. And even in the climate that we're living through right now, I have people in my corner in my life where I can say, you know what, this is how I feel. This is what I'm going to tell the world what I'm feeling. And I'm not going to regret it. I'm not going to be afraid to share it anymore.
Beautiful. Love that. I love that.
Yes.
Especially in today's
Yeah.
time. Yes. I mean, like,
Mhm.
that is like
Yeah.
beautiful words, and I think people need to hear that. So I don't know if Patrick may have a question, but I have
Well, I
like
wanted to throw a little more, like a little more of the ornaments on this tree of life that Jess is. There's so much because by day you're an engineer, to put it
Yes.
simply. She's an
Yeah.
engineer, but then and I like to think of it like this: the shadow self, that other part of you that's not the corporate, it's not the 9 to 5er, it's that other side of you that you're a wonderful poet, you're a spoken word poet, you do this podcast, you change your hair like every time I see you. So
Yeah.
it's there there's elements in what I see. It's this is your expression for those things that you can't just normally express. In the poems, and for you,
Mhm.
for the listeners out there, we had an event last year called Baila and Beats, which was it was pretty much celebrating the diverse rhythms of our community. So we had dancers, performers from the deaf and hard of hearing community, from the LGBTQIA community, BIPOC, everyone. And Jess was the one who started it all off with a poem. And as she was reading her poem, everybody was walking out. It was so awesome, except the audio wasn't working. And I was like, no. And my wife Rachel was so bummed. She's like, I couldn't hear anything. I'm like, no, I know. And so we did it again. And I think our son Sebi had a meltdown, so she had to leave. So she couldn't hear it again. So one day we'll get you to read the poem. But I kind of want to throw out a question, and I've known you off the podcast as well.
Mhm.
Hi, Jess.
Hey.
Uh, I think from the artist standpoint, why do you think it's so important for people to have that safe space to vent those emotions, explore those emotions, release those emotions, whether it's in therapy, art, spoken word, dancing? Why do you think that's so important? And I'll break it down like this. If you could tell it from your logical engineer side and then from your spirit artiste side.
Sure. Yeah, I think that from a logical standpoint, and this is just what I've learned living that corporate life, right? I work in a pretty big corporation currently by day, and something that they try to push is to avoid burnout. And because we have people there at work, in the office, and in our clean rooms 24 hours a day. So, from a logical standpoint, it's something that you need to do to kind of reset, not even kind of, to literally reset. Otherwise, you're just carrying everything, like all those meetings, all those, presentations, all these projects and stuff. And eventually your work starts to feel that pain. You're not the one burning out. You're not the only one burning out, right? It's your
Mhm.
work. It's um your energy levels and everything. From an artist standpoint, I mean, you carry these things, we carry things with us all the time and we don't realize it. And the more we carry, the more it will affect our attitude, our responses, even just like the way that we look from a day to day basis. And there was a time where I just kind of like, I really just let myself loose in the corporate life. And I was trying to climb the ladder. I was trying to do all these things. And so I said, the art stuff can wait. It can wait. So I set it down for a while. And I like to draw. I write poetry. I write short stories and everything. And I set it all down. And I found that I didn't have some avenue to release any kind of tension or stress, or just to sit in the silence with myself and like draw again. And when I started doing that from an artist standpoint, I also noticed that I was growing in an emotional way that I hadn't let myself do in years. And that eventually, slowly prompted me to kind of like dip my toes into therapy. There was they offer it for free where I work, which is fantastic because it's something a lot of people in this country just really can't, access, unfortunately. But I took advantage of it, and I went in with a really bad attitude, like this isn't going to work. I've done this before. And the first session, the therapist was just like, I just need you to be quiet and listen. And I hadn't even said anything yet. Like I wasn't even talking, but I knew that she could tell that I was already making the decision that I'm just like going to come and do my time and then I'm going to go. And that just kind of, made me clutch my pearls for a second, but eventually I let my guard down, and that was something that I've lived doing a lot. Like I've always been in a ready position, and just finally being able to let it go, finally letting myself do things and go and talk to people who make me feel safe and who make me feel like I'm getting to know myself better has just changed. And that can be anything for anybody, right? Like anything from just walking, taking daily walks can actually be a hobby. And it's something that people can do to get away from all the stuff that just kind of tends to bog us down, you know?
So beautiful. I love what you have said because I think many times for our listeners that are listening, many people out there get so focused and home in on work and they neglect that part of themselves, as you mentioned. So like, I love the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be art and that you mentioned that it could be simply walking, just
Yeah.
simply walking. And that can actually be really therapeutical and very healing. I was when you were saying that, and when Patrick mentioned about something a little bit earlier, this triggered something in my head. I thought of something, an article that I read that they say that if you hug a tree and you ground yourself and you're barefooted and you ground yourself and you're hugging a tree, you're making a connection with nature, and nature
Mhm.
produces that energy that you don't have in you. So when you're feeling so defeated, lost, or sad, nature will provide for you. And so I just thought I would add that in. But circling back to your podcast, and I know one of the things that you talk about is showing up.
Mhm.
You mentioned showing up. Can you expand a little bit on that showing up aspect that you mentioned?
Sure. A friend of mine, I was visiting her in Hawaii, and she uses it. She used that phrase a lot. She still does to this day, and she would use it for everything, like telling her kids, "I need you to show up and clean your room." And I was like, "Natalie, what do you mean? Like they're here. Like what's the show up stuff? Like tell me, teach me." And I've learned, and this is my perspective on what she shared with me, is that showing up is being fully present, and which is something that I know I struggled with a lot. I know many of us struggle with. We think about all the bad stuff that happened yesterday, or we worry about what are we going to do tomorrow, next week, or whatever. I actually have a tattoo on my body that says "Be where you are." It's a constant reminder, and that's what showing up is. It's just right here, right now. It doesn't matter if you are falling to pieces or if you are just not sure where to go next. Just be right here, right now, and just look at either yourself or look at what it is that you are putting off or avoiding looking at, or you've been avoiding looking at. Just sit with it. And that's where I got the concept of showing up, because number one, it was one of my biggest fears, basically, is like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to let myself feel these things and sit in this moment. And I ran with that and I took off with it. And so that's what the art of showing up has become.
Okay. Okay.
That's so powerful. It reminded me of something that a leader, one of our leaders at our church, actually told us was, instead of trying to disappear from the pain, you dig into it,
Hmm.
and that's where the
Yep.
transformation comes. And it's scary, I as for those out there who are listening, that we have this avoidant tendency that we don't want to get in tune with our emotions. We don't want to go deep. And then, of course, I married a woman who is very deep, and she's like, "Let's talk about your heart and your soul today." It's like, so for those listening, it's a journey. It's like you said, it's sitting in that stillness. And
Hmm.
I'm stealing this from a Pilates instructor, but there's strength in stillness,
Yeah.
and you just sit there and you allow yourself to go deep, or sit under a tree. Like, you can't see it, but there's a tree right here, and I'm giving it a little shake, and just taking time for self, taking time. But so totally random. It was so cute last week. Sebi, because we're in the woods a lot, mud, dirt, all that. So he walks up to a tree and he's just like, "Daddy, can I hug this tree?" I was like, "Yes." He knows the way. So there he was, just hugging a tree. Like, good, good. That's what I want. Now get in the mud. Then your mommy will clean you. So just putting that there. So goodbye.
Oh, that was
That's
wonderful. I
great.
love that.
That, that is wonderful. I kind of wanted, I know you were talking about, Patrick, about space, about, how do you, about both of you were actually talking about you have to sit with your feelings. But what I want to know is, I would love to hear both you answer this question if you can. How do you make space for your own feelings without being hardened by them? You know how sometimes, I mean, there's some people that just go through a lot of difficulties in life and they become hard. How do you make that, can you, if you don't mind, answering that?
Yeah. Paper, rock, scissors, Jess. You go first if you win. Paper, rock, scissors, shoot.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
oh yeah. Well, okay, go.
Well, as somebody who let herself become hardened, I can tell you that letting yourself get hardened about everything or anything that's happened or all the wrongs and the things that have occurred in your life or to you, super easy. Like that is the absolute easiest thing to do. And even now that I've, gained all these tools and, I have this gift of words that I still sometimes will feel that little snap of like, just be mad at them. Just let it make you get hardened about it. Super easy. Then you're over it. Then you've dealt with it. But avoiding that for me has been more of a work of talking about it. And one specific detail is that I I'm I was a church kid growing up, and I'd mentioned it about a couple times before at work, and one of my coworkers had talked to me. He's like, "Hey, I am too," and then we kind of caught up, and actually wrote a Substack article about this. And what happened was I heard what he was saying, and something that he had said just completely caught me off guard. And because the first part of the conversation, I was a little, because something that had happened growing up and in my adult life, and he just, tears in his eyes, just full honesty. You could tell when people genuinely mean their apologies, and he just apologized, and that just shattered a wall for me, and in a good way, and like the absolute best way. And I think that not letting myself get hardened is a challenge for sure, but B, it also helps me find more of myself if I look at it. And like Patrick said, if I go through it, let myself just go through it, then I come out the other side and I'm just like, that was difficult, but I feel 1,000 times lighter.
Give some snaps from the back of the room.
Yes.
You're so wise. Write a book. Come on. Get the book. I think in what I've experienced, there's a phrase, and I think it comes from a 12-step program where you fall in love with the process. And that's the key. And I also kind of took that concept into business. You fall in love with the process. You market, you love the process of marketing to get to where you want to be. And so I know for a long time in my own life, and I'm just going to put this out here too, because Jess, myself, Rachel, my wife, we all grew up in the same, what we're going to call pretty much evangelical Christian nationalism. We all grew up in that community. We all grew up with the expectations that come along with that. A lot of times, instead of dealing with emotional trauma, it's, well, God is going to bring you through this. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And they throw scriptures instead of actual sustenance and talking through it and counseling and therapy. And so I think a lot of us, and maybe those even who are listening, who grew up in religious households where you didn't get that freedom because, well, the Bible says. And so I had a lot of hardness and bitterness against that. And then that kind of continued over into my dating relationships because I was engaged at 21 and God put us together and this is going to be great. Then it fell apart ugly style. And it's like, well, God put that together, didn't he? Or someone who gets married and then it falls apart. Well, God brought that union. Someone who steps out into their dream. I'm going to be start a nonprofit that's going to help people. Then it goes bottoms up. And so then we have this question of like, well, I grew up believing that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I grew up believing that everything I put my hand to will prosper. And then you come into economic crises, you come into relational crises. And so where do you navigate from there? A lot of times, people walk away from their faith. It's just like, this is bunk. It's not real. Other people kind of wrestle with it. I think in order to avoid being hard, because for several years I was hard. I was very hard and towards my faith in my early 20s. I remember specifically at the university I was at, they wanted me to lead a college group for like a college Bible study, and I just like touching a hot stove. It's like, oh no, 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 and please don't ask me again. I've done that. I've been there. No, thank you. There is a certain element where the body remembers trauma, and you can want to push into it, but your body's like, no, I'm not touching that stove again. And so what I kind of the approach that I took, because I've always been the artist, I've always been the, dancer and doing events and stuff. I went the more logical route. I was like, I don't have to fear every stove that I see, but I can learn to understand what I believe about the stove and how to work the stove and relationships as well. I went through several early in my 20s horrible relationships that bottomed out. But then I was like, I can't just go through life being bitter and hardened and jaded. And so understanding, like deep dive understanding, like what things happened in my childhood that would be triggering right now, what happened in the church, why do I push back so much? And so understanding a lot of it, and I would say the climate that we're in right now, it's bringing a lot of what we grew up in, it's putting it into the limelight. Where back then I would question things. I'm like, that's kind of silly. I don't know, but everybody else is doing it. Okay. Group think, herd mentality. But now that I see that it's out there and people question it, I'm like, I think I'm validated that I did push back, but I sought to understand. And so I think in the landing right here, it's you can become hardened if you just allow yourself to take it and never do anything with it. But if you're willing to like dig in, pull it out, examine it, look at it from an objective perspective. What happened in this moment? What really happened? What could you have done different? But what can we learn from this? And that goes for finances, relationships, job market. I'm doing that right now with my career as a speaker. That everything in my business has like vanished because I lost like several of my clients don't exist because of cuts from the top up, from the White House up, like they got cut. And so looking at that from, do I get jaded and bitter at one person's decisions, or do I seek to understand and how can I adapt? How can I change and grow and learn from this? And so there's, I like Jess embodies it. I think it's you come from the smart logical side, but you also come from the artist spiritual side and a tree, hug a tree and learn from the tree and go from there. So, and I want to
Thank
kind
you.
of I want to pickleball that back to you now, Deanna, because it's the same. Like, how have you navigated a lot of this? Because you went through that corporate reckoning of 2025, and this opened up. But how did you go from not letting it jade you and harden you?
I've always been a very emotional person. And I think that's been one of those things that turn people off. Or like some people they embrace and say, "My gosh, I love that about you." While others are turned off. I tend to be very transparent and open, so I allow myself to grieve. I really one of those things that I do, and I think it's okay for people um to cry, to mourn, to feel. And my feelings are I've been told this and I know myself. Like for example, some people when things happen to them, my emotions are like an atomic bomb explosion. I feel deeply, emotionally, I feel it. So to avoid being hardened and becoming very bitter, I allow myself to go through it and then forgive myself and forgive others and say it's part of the process. And I always reflect back and this is the one thing that I always kind of say to myself, it's a blessing in disguise. I don't know why this happened and why it's happening. And I reflect back on my past. This happened and at the time you cried, you mourned. Like prior to I worked with another company and I was also surplus for different circumstances. And we went through that COVID period of time. And so, and I found art and I started discovering that I love to paint. And I found that and I connected with my grandson and I found that I was doing things and discovering things like oh, wow, this is a time of me discovering me all over again because I have the time. I lost this job, and so the same thing happened again. This podcast wouldn't exist if I wasn't um, without a job. So what I try to do to avoid being hardened is live through the emotions, accept them, allow my and then share with others because I believe that's a full circle. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. I accepted that. And you know, people may say, "Oh my gosh, she's way too emotional. She's way too transparent. She's oversharing." And because I've been told, "Man, you overshare too much." And that's okay. That's okay. I mean, that's who I am. You could accept me or, you know, or not, but that's I'm not going to change because it makes you feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to overshare certain, you know, like I know the boundaries. There are boundaries, but there are things. So I think that's what's helped me from avoid getting hard. And so really circling back what you just have mentioned and Patrick is finding an outlet, sitting in that silence with ourselves. And I think that's the common thing and that all humans have to do so that we don't become hardened and embrace the situation and kind of try to look at it in a positive way. What's good about this, you know? But so thank you for asking, Patrick. I do want to go back to Jess and ask her a question. I know that right now you host a podcast. That's your thing for therapy, and like us, we depend on others to listen to us. But you know, they're out there to listen and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, but I feel, and I sometimes find myself feeling this way, and I want to know if you feel like that society has lost the ability to listen. Like, because sometimes I feel like people are just shutting down and they're not listening. And how do you feel about that? And if you agree with that, I mean, how do we reclaim that? How do we get that back? You know, how do we reclaim that?
You know, that's something that definitely almost stopped me was the fact that it's hard to get people to listen. And most of the time, like I work on a team of mostly men. So the entertainment or the podcasts that they listen to are very far from my personality type when it comes to having conversations like this. Because I can let loose with the best of them. But when it comes to things like a podcast or sharing poetry or just, you know, like I said, having a conversation in this form, I got discouraged because it is hard to get people to listen or to keep them listening. And so I did a lot of research. I'm a very math and science leaning person. So of course I researched, you know, got on the internet, I got statistics and everything. And in a layout form, I went with, you know, a shorter form of a podcast episode just because I want it to be, you know, I'm folding laundry. So let me just have somebody talk to me while I do it. Or I am driving to HEB or something. And I wanted it to be something that's, you know, enough to spark, you know, hey, or, you know, to grab somebody's attention, but also not too much to where people just kind of like drift off and like, oh, what other playlists do I have here? You know? And even then, I do know that it's still very difficult to hold on to that. And one thing that I do personally is that I will reach out. I do know some of the people that listen, I know them personally. And so I'll reach out to them and say, hey, give me some pointers, critique me, criticize the work because I need it so that I know which direction to go. And I've even, you know, gone as far as making posts on the social platforms, asking for feedback. And a lot of people do take that liberty. Of course, I've got to swim through the DMs and the emails and everything of, you know, who's actually giving feedback and who's just kind of trying to be mean or trying to be silly or whatever. But it helps. It helps putting myself out there, which again, scary, um, to just say, hey, tell me how I can make this better in a way that can hold your attention or hold other people's attention. So that's my approach to it.
And I want to throw in there too. I think also just because you're so chill in the podcast, like somebody could listen to it at night and it's like, ah, this is gonna calm you down, calm your nervous system down. But for all of you listening out there who maybe your significant other, somebody loves the Andrew Tates and the Joe Rogan podcast, I would definitely say check out Jess's episode of Rage. Like put it somehow into your significant other's peripheral vision because there's been two podcasts this whole year that have just been like whoa, like brain splatter. I mean, just like so incredible. The first one was one with Jack O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, phenomenal podcast about entrepreneurship. And I mean, a 2 hour podcast at that. And I just like took everything from it. And then the other was Jess's on Rage. Uh, we listened to the podcast on the way down to a Rage room. So it was so fitting. Our first ever Rage room for, I think, Rachel's birthday or our anniversary or something. And we just decided, like, let's listen to it. It's down in New Braunfels, 45-minute drive. And my gosh, I was like, rewind it, rewind it. I need to get my notes. I need notes here because it's just so content rich, but it's stuff that people can relate to. And I think that's why, maybe all the people on your team, they listen to their podcast because they can relate to it. Maybe it's about finances or the stogies or whatever. But rage is one of those things, anger, that guttural, just like, ugh. The fact that they have scream
Mhm.
parties here in Austin now at Fluger Bridge where you just go and scream, it's a part of us that as society we have tried to numb out because it's not good. It's not something that we embrace. It's like, no, we're civilized and we can, but we need to get in touch with that anger at times. I'll say there's been times where I scream into a pillow. I'll hold up a couch cushion and let my friend like punch it, get it out. Ah! And so Jess brings that, but in a very calm way. Like I would just be on there like rage, come on, red, throw the table. Ah! But Jess calms the spirit, calms it. So definitely look for her podcast because it is so good. The Art of Showing Up because it's so good and so needed, especially when when everybody is, you know, caught up in the politics of where we are as a country. So I'll
Mhm.
shut up there. Take it away. Go.
I want to shift gears for a second. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing all that. And I share sentiments with you. That was an episode that I truly enjoyed. And I was like, we got to get her on. We have to get her on. But I want to shift gears a little bit. I know that you're a poet, and I was hoping, if you don't mind, I don't know if you have something there. Can you read some of your work to us? Well, a poet, and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
Woo! Actually,
Um,
Rachel wanted me to ask you to do the same thing, so good job.
yeah, I have one because of course our current climate that we've been living in lately has been very deeply inspiring. And as part of the LGBTQ plus community, I've been just, of course, my knee jerk reaction is like fear, right? Like what's going to happen? I just want to be this person who, after however many years it's taken, just be myself fully and be fully present and not have to worry. But of course, all the laws and everything. So this is one that I've called, I titled it Symphony. So I'll share it now. I'm so sorry they've taken a symphony and made you feel fear in it. That violins were meant to lift you, but someone twisted the bow into a blade. That drums were supposed to echo your heartbeat. Instead, they shook the ground like warning sirens. I'm sorry you had to learn to hold your breath in the middle of a song that was written for your lungs because you were always meant to be here, full voiced, shoulders unbroken, singing. But the world keeps trying to mute you with policies, to shrink you with headlines, to tell you this stage isn't yours. But the stage doesn't belong to them. The music doesn't belong to them. Your body, your story, your name do not belong to them. It all belongs to you, to your inner child who hummed into hairbrushes, to the tired version of you still carrying the weight of silence, to the brave one who kept breathing even when it burned. I know the ache of being told you're too much or not enough or somehow both in the same sentence. I know the fear of hands that legislate your body without ever knowing your soul, but there's something in you they cannot take. A note so stubborn, so holy that it thrums against your ribs like a secret rebellion. That note is yours. That note is you. And maybe one day we'll hear it rise, not as apology, but as thunder, as healing, as a roar so wide it shakes their scaffolds to the ground. Until that day, hold it close. Sing when you can, whisper when you can't. I hope you know you are not alone in the audience. You're not alone in the choir. And I swear to you, I will keep showing up, clapping loud enough to remind you the symphony was always meant to sound like you.
Oh my gosh. Whew. I got goosebumps. That is so moving. Wow. Thank you.
I
Thank
got
you for
tears.
sharing
I
that.
got tears.
Yeah.
I that's powerful. Uh um
So needed. Keep that one. Keep earmark that one. If we do byline beats again next year, that's the one we want to start
Absolutely.
with. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one so powerful. I love it. Love it. For all the
that
listeners out
is
there, that symphony is for you.
Mm-hmm.
yes. Thank you. That is well, I mean, I'm lost for words because I mean, it's just I feel like we should have left that at the end because, as a closing, because that was that powerful. Um, but thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write that? What was it that made it's beautiful, poetic, it's very moving. What made you come up with that, or if you can explain?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you. It was uh from the absolute like bottom of my heart what written, and all of my poetry typically is. Initially, I wrote it because we're seeing all of these bills and laws and policies that are starting to get pushed and some even passed that are, to say it blankly and plainly, dangerous for our friends and family in the trans community. And when I initially began writing it, just and my I guess process is I'll just scribble words on pages and just kind of I'll literally just talk to myself. And you know I had this mess of words on paper, and I was like, this is for them. But then I started looking at it and I was like, I'm part of this community. But, there are other people out there who are allies, and there are other people out there who are, you know, brown skinned and indigenous. And there's just so many people who fall into why I'm writing this poem that I decided to kind of adjust the words to be able to reach not just the LGBTQ plus community, but to everybody, because I am part of all of that. I am part of, you know, that community. I'm part of people of color community. I'm part of a community that has over the years proved to me that they will show up whenever people forget that they belong. And I wanted to write this as basically a thanks and a reminder that this fight is getting ugly. This fight is getting scary, but there is this enormous just community of people who are always willing and waiting and ready to have each other's backs.
Thank you. Whew. I
Mhm.
thank you.
Of
So,
course.
I don't even
this
sit
is
in the stillness. I don't even know what to say. Uh, uh,
no, I think and I think that's the most beautiful thing that I find in art, whether it's in poetry, writing, storytelling, is because this is the only way that the message can get across to masses of people.
mhm.
And it's like through music, through the expression of art, through poetry, and you were able to create a beautiful piece that is um, for, I think, for any time, but most importantly, the time that we're going through, people need to hear. And so I'm so happy that you shared it on Life and in Between with that. Patrick, do you have a question? Because I do have another question. If you, but I kind of dominate sometimes, so I don't like to
No, you're good.
dominate.
I'm still just like simmering in the poem. It's like, man, it's so good. How did she get that? I mean, twisting the bow into a blade. Oh, oh, like gold star just right there. My gosh, it's no, I think everything you're saying, and especially for the listeners, that you are valued, you are treasured. This symphony was for you, and screw the powers that be that are trying to tell you that you're less than. I mean, it's disgusting because it was just the bubble that we grew up in. It was that bubble of feeling shame. You know,
Yeah.
I know Jess's journey was not a walk in the park, to grow up in a church environment like that and to be part of the LGBTQ community. It's like, wait, the fact that I got pushed back early on in my dance career as a b-boy, as a breaker, that, well, it's not fitting to our church environment among the
Mhm.
flags and the tambourines. It's like, what the hell? I'm giving my full self. This is my full self. And it's just maddening that that is now mainstream. Like, it's so
Yeah.
maddening that all of this has leaked into every orifice of this country, and that now we're being framed as bad people, as the mistakes that's needing correction. It's like, screw that. I'm on my soapbox now, but yeah, screw that. Live who you are, live proud, stand up, keep dancing, rise, rebel, whatever's needed, because this is we the people. We the people. And I'll
Yeah.
just leave it at that. You triggered me. I'm ready. Rage. So, but yes, take the question. I'm just still kind of simmering
Mhm.
in the words.
I did want to ask a question that just because your words are so powerful, and right now there could be someone right now listening that is feeling hopeless right now, feeling alone, that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Um, can you share some encouraging words? Because you are such a powerful poet and powerful speaker and leader. I call you a leader. Things that you can, how they can move on to the next step, how they can find a way to move forward in this challenging time. Um, and they have no one that will listen to them. But we are listening. What can you say to them?
Oh, there's so much I could say. I'll start with, you know, the two words that always pushed me, and they were hold on. Because and I know, especially whenever you're in a place where you don't have a whole lot of people, or even in some cases any people you can lean on or trust in, and it's hard whenever you're in a place like that. But just, hold on. If you're listening, just start small, you know, reach out and check on a friend. And believe it or not, like, you're probably thinking, why would I check on somebody if I'm the one dealing with something? I'm the one going through something. And I assure you, the moment that you shift that paradigm in your mind and in your heart, where you're actually doing the reaching out and you're checking on one of your closest friends, just say, "Hey, I was thinking about you, wanted to see how you're doing." And it shifts something within you where you realize I do have there is somebody there, right? There's somebody that I know without a doubt I can lean on in a way. And that'll start, that snowball rolling. But just, holding on is definitely, and feeling your way through the dark is terrifying at times. And eventually you get to a point where your eyes will adjust, but just, you have to keep just believing, and you have to not think about, yesterday, not worry about tomorrow, because unless somebody out there has like the magical capabilities of going to yesterday and unsaying things, or moving forward to tomorrow and prepping things for when you get there, the best place to be is right here and right now. And even if your right here right now looks dark or messy or scary, I always offer at the end of every episode, reach out to me. I share my information for the show if there's any questions. If all you want to do is just have a short conversation with another human being, do it. Because I'm always happy to do my best, right? To show up for and with other people. So that's my approach. That's what I would like to let listeners know.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's great.
Whew, this was therapy.
And I think that's what you said is very kind, and because I know there are people out there, especially in I know many people that have opted out and not continue.
Yep.
Woo, we didn't expect this. Okay. Now another good question. On a happier note, I want to know a little bit about, I know you love to write poetry. We know that you love to do your podcasts. Can you share a nice fun fact about Jess that no one knows? Maybe Rachel may know, but something that
Right.
that our listeners would be like, wow, that's a nice thing to know about Jess, you know?
Well, some people are polyglots in that they speak like a dozen or so different languages. Um, I am fluent in movie quotes. So I have, like, even the night that they had the surprise party, one of my friends and I, that we were just part of a conversation, and somehow something that somebody said sparked a memory from a movie that we both happened to watch, and I started saying a line and he started saying a line, and then we just continued the back and forth from that one specific scene in a movie. But I will use movie lines on a regular daily basis. Another thing, my hair was blue 2 days ago.
Hmm.
It's yeah, I like to cycle colors. I used to work in a clean room, so I was just, it was just this much of me that was exposed. So once I got my office job, I decided, you know what? Let me just have some fun with this. And so this is me having fun with my hair, and it's been absolutely incredible. And I learned how to do it myself, so I'm saving some money, but yeah, it's been really fun.
One day you can get Rachel to dye her hair like blue or orange or something.
Oh my gosh, I try to convince her all the time.
Get her, get her, get her. And you also do stand up. You do slams here in Austin.
Yes, I've recently just started to get back into open mics and everything. Not so much slams, just because the ones that I've seen lately anyway have been mostly competitions, and I don't know, I like doing slam, but most of the slam artists that I've seen tend to perform and in a
Hmm.
way where it's just them and just the microphone, and I have to have the security blanket of which sometimes I don't even look at it most times of my notebook, right? Um, so I'm working my way there, but I do open mics. I'll be over at the Vortex or other random coffee shops in town. So I got back into that. It's been really fun. Just the poetry community has definitely changed over the years. It used to be this place where it was, oh, that poem just didn't land right. You're where poetry, like art and stuff, is supposed to be subjective, right? But there was a time where I noticed that poetry was becoming more of an objective thing where, it has to read like this, it has to sound like this. Otherwise,
Hmm.
what's the point? And that was one of the things that kind of pushed me away from poetry for a while, but I secretly kept writing, of course. But yeah, I do the open mics, and it's really fun. It's scary, but at the end of the day, it's just something that I needed to do to just help me relax more.
I know what you're saying. You're a poet, but a lot of it's now performers.
Yeah.
Rain, drop, drip, drop, hat, flat, back, down. I am from the far. Yeah, like it. Which kudos. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
kudos to them. And I think those of you who are in Austin, hit up poetry, get into it, find something as a release. I mean, you also go to the gym a lot. Like you're
Yes.
shredded. She's shredded, everyone. So so
I
whether
got
it's
to
the
get tips
gym,
from you.
Mm.
work out at 3 in the morning. I think that's your
Yeah. Yeah. First workout of the day is usually around 3 or 4.
Oh,
that's
early
crazy.
riser. That's
Yep.
But yeah. So work out the body, work out the mind, work out the soul.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where
And
it all
and it's
starts.
like I said earlier, there's just different things like step outside without your phone, or
Mm,
I don't know, actually go analog and write out your grocery list. Just do
mhm.
something that's not the norm for you. And honestly, just like even the smallest things make the biggest differences.
Start a podcast.
Yep.
That's a big one. One that we started doing here in Austin, and they're pretty popular in all major cities now. It's the daytime dance parties. They have one here in Austin called Latte, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's, I mean, just house music, dancing, and we invite friends. And we went to one, and it's therapy. You're just there dancing, and it's not people drunk and everywhere. It's just
Right.
all the hipsters caffeinated. So
That's
dance,
awesome.
move, get it all, get it all.
Yep.
So yeah, this was so good. I want to post all this on
Yes.
LinkedIn or something, even though I never use LinkedIn, but people need to hear this on LinkedIn.
Yes, we definitely do. We're working on that. We're working on that. As I'm perfecting more and getting in touch with that, we're going to be dropping in clips and everything. And I don't know if you want to, let's take a funny picture. Patrick, do you know how to do the funny picture or a picture that we can share on
Let me,
social medias? And
oops, I don't want that button. Give me one
I
second. I'm
like to
gonna
do my little
go
heart
to
thing. I like the heart one.
multi-screen picture in picture. Well, I just messed up my view. Hold on, let me get everybody back.
Okay, okay,
Okay, there
okay.
we are. Okay, three of us. So I'll look in my eye. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Wait, Control Alt Delete, and 1, 2, 3. Ha ha ha. I'm so sunny. This is the hard part about being outside. Okay, I got a few. I'll send them over. It's the sun keeps changing every 5 minutes. Ah, ah. But yeah, I got some good pictures there. Yes, this was good. And
Thank
for all
you.
of you
Thank
listeners
you.
out there, find Jess's podcast, Life and In
Yes.
Between podcast, wherever you get your
Yes.
podcast, and then Jess's the showing up. No, the art of showing up.
Art of
But again,
showing up.
Yeah.
yeah, art of showing up. Spotify. Listen to the Rage episode. Oh,
Yes. Jess, can you share like your where people can contact you or listen to the podcast? I know that Patrick quickly shared it, but can you kind of other places where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast does have an Instagram. It's the handle is at the dot art of showing up. Feel free to drop some DMs, questions, comments, even ideas for future shows. Also, you can listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm currently migrating my website, so that's down for the time being, but it should be back up within the next week. Other than that, you can also my personal Instagram is at the Jes Mendoza. And yeah, that's where I'm also on Facebook, the Art of Showing Up podcast. So
there's your Instagram right there, people. Go
yeah.
find it.
Uh, well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor, and you are now part of the in between life and in between familia. You are welcome anytime to come and join us. We love having you, and thank you again and for being a guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was fantastic. This was so much fun.